You're not our priority." Chloe's words hung in the air like a death sentence. My hand trembled, clutching the phone, as a heavy silence settled between us. Muffled giggles drifted from the other end of the line. "I understand," was all I could manage before the click of the disconnect. The phone slipped from my fingers onto my lap. I just sat there, in the crocheted armchair I'd made myself, staring at the wall. Dozens of photographs told the story of a life dedicated to family. Noah and Chloe in every stage. Newborns in my arms, first steps clinging to my hands, birthday parties with chocolate smeared on their faces, afternoons at the beach building sandcastles. That ache in my chest wasn't new. It had been growing for months, a slow burn with every "we're busy, Grandma," and every cancelled get-together. But hearing that, spoken with such cold indifference, it felt like someone had ripped something vital right out of me. I slowly rose, my joints protesting more than usual, and shuffled to the kitchen. I put water on to boil, the familiar ritual I always turned to when my thoughts tangled. Tea, something Arthur and I used to share. "Susan," he'd say, "there's no problem a good cup of tea can help clear up. You must be wondering how it came to this. How a grandmother who poured every free minute into her grandkids could be discarded like some useless old thing." I wondered that too, as tears silently traced paths down my wrinkled face. Everything started to shift about 6 months ago. Noah and Chloe had just turned 15. The party was enormous, orchestrated by Stephanie with that meticulous perfectionism I always admired, even when it made me feel a little intimidated. Chris, my son, was beaming that day, so proud of the twins, growing up handsome and smart. "Mom," he told me during the party, his arm around my shoulders, "look at what you helped create. I don't know what we would have done without you all these years." Those words filled me with a quiet joy. After all, ever since the twins were born, my life had orbited them. When Chris and Stephanie worked late, I was the one with the kids. When they fell ill, I'd spend sleepless nights applying cool compresses, humming lullabies. School breaks meant my apartment transformed into the headquarters for all their games. I never minded the exhaustion. Every one of their smiles recharged my spirit. Every "I love you, Grandma" was worth more than all the lost hours of sleep combined. But after that 15th birthday party, something subtly changed. At first, it was small things. The spontaneous hugs vanished. Phone conversations grew shorter, punctuated by bored monosyllables. Our Friday get-togethers, a tradition since they were toddlers, started getting canceled. "They're growing up, Mom," Chris would explain when I brought it up. "It's normal for them to want more time with friends." Stephanie was more blunt. "Susan, you need to give them space. They're not little kids anymore." I tried to understand. I'd been young once, too. I remembered being 15, that exhilarating feeling of the world opening up, so much to discover away from adult eyes. But it stung to be pushed aside so abruptly. One Sunday afternoon, about 3 months ago, I went over to their house with an apple pie, the twins' favorite. I showed up unannounced, as always. Stephanie answered the door, her expression a mix of surprise and something I couldn't quite place. "Susan, we weren't expecting you today," she said, not quite opening the door wide. "I brought a fresh pie," I replied, holding up the plate covered with an embroidered dish towel. "Are the kids here?" "They're studying with some friends, really swamped." But then I heard it, laughter from the living room, voices I'd recognize anywhere. Noah and Chloe were home, not studying, just... they didn't want to see me. "Oh, I mumbled, my face burning with shame. I understand. I'll just leave the pie with you then. Stephanie took the plate, a quick thanks, and closed the door. I stood there for a few seconds, staring at the polished wood, before turning and walking back to the bus stop. That night, I cried like I hadn't since Arthur died. It wasn't just the rejection that cut, but the lie. Why couldn't they just say they wanted to be left alone? Why the charade? The following weeks were a series of futile attempts. Calls went straight to voicemail. Texts were answered with emojis or clipped phrases. Invitations politely declined. Want to catch that superhero movie Saturday? The one you guys wanted to see? Already going with friends, Grandma. Next time. How about lunch here Sunday? I'll make that lasagna you love. Got a test Monday. Gotta study. Each excuse was a fresh wound. I knew I was losing them, but I couldn't grasp why. What had I done wrong? That's when I decided on one last effort. My 68th birthday was in 2 weeks. Ever since the twins were little, we'd had a tradition. We'd go to the beach to watch the sunset. We'd sit on the sand, eat sandwiches I'd made, and tell stories until the first stars appeared. It was our special time. I called to confirm, my heart full of a fragile hope. Maybe this date, always so important to us, could bridge the growing chasm. And that's when I heard those words that still echoed in my mind. You're not our priority. The tea water had long since boiled over when I finally snapped back to reality. I wiped the tears with the back of my hand and took a deep, shuddering breath. Arthur always said crying helps, but it doesn't solve anything. It was time to act. The very next day, as if the universe itself were sending a sign, I got a call from Mr. Davis, the lawyer handling the sale of the beachfront property I'd inherited from my father in Florida. Mrs. Susan, I have great news. The sale has been finalized, and the funds are already available in your account. That money represented so much more than just its monetary value. It was the last tangible memory of my father, a piece of land he'd bought, dreaming of building a beach house for the family, a dream he never realized. I'd held on to it all these years out of sentimentality, but a few months ago, when Chris mentioned the twins were looking at expensive colleges, I decided to sell it. The plan was to use the money to help with their tuition. Thank you, Mr. Davis, I'll check. After hanging up, I stared out the window, thinking, that money was my future. Or rather, it was the future I'd meticulously planned for my grandchildren. But now, with those words still searing in my memory, you're not our priority. Something fundamental began to shift inside me. That same afternoon, another call came. It was Brenda, my younger sister, who lived down in Florida. Susan, how long are you going to put off living? It's been 5 years I've been inviting you to come live near me. There's the ocean here, sunshine, people our age having fun. And there's me, your sister who misses you. Brenda had always been the family's adventurer. She divorced in her 50s and started a new life by the coast, where she opened a small bed and breakfast. She constantly invited me to visit, to consider a move. But I always refused. How could I leave the twins? They needed me. Or at least I thought they did. Brenda, I'll really think about it this time. I promise. Thinking isn't doing, Susan. But it's a start. Over the next 3 days, I did something I hadn't done in a long, long time. I thought about myself, about my own desires, my deferred dreams. I remembered how much I loved to paint when I was young, before life as a single mom consumed all my time. I remembered the sheer pleasure of walking on the beach, feeling the sand between my toes. I remembered who I was before I was just the twins' grandma. I looked at the photos on the wall, at the envelope with the bank statement showing the value from the land sale, at the bus ticket I'd impulsively bought to visit Brenda. And I made a decision. Yesterday, I transferred the money to a separate account. Not for the twins' education, but for my future. I called a real estate agent in Florida and scheduled visits to a few houses near Brenda's. I looked up beginner painting classes. I started sorting what I'd take with me and what I'd leave behind. This morning, the phone rang. It was Chris. "Mom," his voice laced with worry. "I talked to the kids about what happened. They were stressed that day. You know how teenagers are. They want to apologize. We can all go to the beach for your birthday, like we always do." I felt a pang in my chest. For a fleeting moment, I almost faltered. Almost slipped back into the familiar role of the always available grandma. Always ready to forgive and forget. But then I remembered Chloe's words. The door closed in my face. The months of silent rejection. I took a deep breath before answering. "That won't be necessary, son. I won't be here. I'm starting a new life by the coast." "What do you mean? What about the house? What about us?" There was a time when that question would have made me recoil. It would have filled me with guilt for abandoning my family. But now, at almost 68, I finally understood that taking care of others doesn't mean erasing yourself. "You have your priorities," I replied calmly. Now I've realized I can have mine too. The silence on the other end of the line was different from the one after Chloe's words. It wasn't a silence of contempt, but of stunned surprise. From someone who never imagined their mother, always so dedicated and available, could choose her own path. "Mom, you can't be serious. The kids need you. We need you." "Need me? Or are you just used to having me around when it's convenient?" "That's not fair, Mom. They're teenagers. They say things without thinking. And I'm a 67-year-old woman who's finally learning to think about herself, Chris." When I hung up, I felt this weird mix of hurt and freedom. I looked out the window. The same sky I used to watch with my grandkids now looked different, bigger, like the future I was finally building for myself. I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know if Chris, Stephanie, and the twins will understand my decision or if they'll feel abandoned. I don't know if I'll find happiness in this new chapter or if the loneliness will be bigger than my courage. But I do know that, for the first time in decades, I'm making a choice that's entirely mine. And there's a strange peace in that. Tomorrow, I'll be 68. I won't be on the beach with my grandkids, like all the birthdays before. I'll be on a bus heading to Sarasota, with 2 suitcases holding just the essentials and a heart full of nerves and hope. They say it's never too late to start over. I'm about to find out if that's true. But what scares me most isn't the change itself. It's what'll happen when the dust settles, when Chris's anger fades, when the twins realize that the grandma who was always there suddenly isn't anymore. What'll happen when, and if, they knock on my door? Will I have the strength to stick to my decision? Or will I just run back to the role I've always played, forgetting myself all over again? Those questions stayed with me the whole bus ride. Looking out the window, I watched the city skyline slowly give way to the green and blue of the coast. Every mile took me further from the life I knew, and closer to something new, something unknown. Scary, and at the same time, strangely freeing. Brenda was waiting for me at the bus station, with that wide smile that's always been her trademark. At 63, my younger sister looked younger than me. With her chic grey bob and colourful clothes I'd never have the guts to wear. "Finally!" she exclaimed, hugging me tight. "I thought I was going to have to kidnap you to get you down here." I smiled, breathing in the familiar scent of her perfume. Lavender with a hint of vanilla. Some things never change, even after all these years. "Happy birthday, you stubborn thing," she continued, handing me a small package. "Open it when we get home." Home. A word that suddenly didn't have a clear meaning for me anymore. Brenda's apartment was 2 blocks from the beach, small but airy, with big windows that let in the ocean breeze and the golden light of late afternoon. She'd prepared the guest room for me, with fresh flowers on the nightstand and a fruit basket on the little table. "It's temporary," she explained, "until we find your own little place. I've already scheduled viewings for 3 properties nearby tomorrow." I sat on the bed, feeling the exhaustion from the trip and the emotional weight of the last few days. Brenda sat beside me, taking my hands in hers. "Want to talk about it?" And then, like a dam breaking, I started to cry. I told her everything, the months of gradual distance, the door slammed in my face, the cruel words on the phone. I told her about the money from the property, about my decision to use it for myself, about Chris's call that morning. Brenda just listened, holding my hands, her eyes, so much like mine, filled with understanding. "You know what hurts the most?" I asked between sobs. "It's that a part of me still feels guilty, like I'm abandoning them, like it's my obligation to always be available no matter how they treat me." "Susan," Brenda said softly, "you dedicated your entire life to others. You raised 3 kids on your own after Arthur passed. You worked 2 jobs, never complained. And when your grandkids were born, you were right there, ready to help. How many grandmas do what you did? Picking them up from school 3 times a week, staying up all night when they were sick, giving up your own interests." She paused, wiping a tear from my face. "It's not selfish to want a little respect and consideration. It's not selfish to expect some reciprocity, even if it's just a sincere phone call on your birthday." I looked at the small package she'd given me, still unopened in my lap. "Open it," she encouraged. Inside was a sketchbook, a set of watercolors and professional grade brushes. "For you to start fresh," Brenda explained. "Remember how well you used to paint? Mom always said you had a special gift." I ran my fingers over the watercolors, feeling the texture of the sketchbook paper. How many years had it been since I last painted? 20? 30? "Thank you," I murmured. "Now go take a shower. We're having dinner by the beach. It's your birthday, after all." As the warm water from the shower streamed over my tense shoulders, I remembered another birthday, exactly 10 years ago. It was my 58th birthday. Noah and Chloe had just turned 5. Chris and Stephanie were going through a rough patch in their marriage. Constant arguments, long silences, that palpable tension that fills a house when a relationship is hanging by a thread. That afternoon, Chris showed up at my apartment with the twins. He looked exhausted, with deep circles under his eyes, and that expression of someone who hadn't slept properly in days. "Mom, I'm sorry to just show up. Stephanie and we need some time to talk. Could you watch the kids today? I know it's your birthday, but..." "Of course," I interrupted, extending my arms to the little ones who were already running to hug me. "Grandma, we brought you a present," Chloe announced, her little eyes sparkling with excitement. Noah, always shyer, held out a package wrapped in colorful paper, clearly made by tiny hands. "We made it ourselves," he explained, proud. Inside was a clay picture frame, painted with vibrant colors and a little crooked, with a photo of the four of us, me, Chris, Noah, and Chloe, taken at the beach the summer before. "It's so you never forget we love you so much, Grandma," Chloe said, hugging my legs. Chris looked embarrassed. "Mom, I know it's not ideal to spend your birthday watching the kids, but I promise." "There's nowhere else I'd rather be," I assured him. And it was true. In that moment, those children were my greatest joy. After Chris left, I baked a simple cake. We sang Happy Birthday at the small kitchen table with makeshift candles. Noah and Chloe insisted on giving me magic presents, special hugs that, according to them, made wishes come true. "What's your wish, Grandma?" Noah asked, serious. "That you two are happy," I replied without hesitation. "And that you always know how much you're loved." Later, when they were already in their pajamas, watching a cartoon on TV, I got a call from Stephanie. "Susan, Chris told me the kids are with you. I'm so sorry about your birthday." Her voice sounded different, softer, less defensive than usual. "Don't worry, we're having fun." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Susan, thank you for everything you do for us. I know I don't always show it, but I don't know what our family would do without you." Those words, so rare coming from Stephanie, warmed me inside. "We're family," I replied simply. "It's what we do for each other." That night, I slept with Noah and Chloe snuggled on either side of my double bed, their warm little bodies, their soft breathing, their hair smelling of kids' shampoo. I remember thinking that despite all the difficulties, all the deferred dreams, I was profoundly happy in that moment. I snapped back to the present with the sound of Brenda knocking on the bathroom door. "Susan, everything okay in there? The water's still running." "I'm fine," I replied, turning off the shower. "Just got lost in some memories." Dinner by the beach was simple and lovely. A small beachfront restaurant with wooden tables right on the sand and fairy lights strung all around. Brenda had told the owner it was my birthday, and I was surprised with a small cake with a single candle and the waiters singing "Happy Birthday." "Make a wish," Brenda encouraged when they finished singing. I closed my eyes for a moment. What did I really wish for? It wasn't to go back, not to reclaim the life I had. It was peace, acceptance, and the courage to move forward. I blew out the candle. We walked back to the apartment along the boardwalk, feeling the ocean breeze and listening to the sound of waves crashing on the shore. There were couples holding hands, families with kids, elderly folks on benches gazing at the horizon. Life happening in all its forms. "Brenda," I asked suddenly, "do you regret it? Getting divorced? Changing your life so drastically?" She considered the question for a moment, before answering. "There were tough days, of course. Days when I doubted myself, when I was scared. But regret? No. It was the best decision I ever made. I learned it's never too late to start over, to choose your own happiness." She squeezed my hand. "And you'll discover that too, Susan. It'll hurt sometimes, it'll be scary. But it'll be worth it." When we got back to the apartment, my phone showed several missed calls from Chris, and even one from Stephanie. There were also text messages from the twins, the first in months that weren't just one-word answers to mine. "Grandma, please answer, we need to talk." "Noah." "I'm sorry for what I said. It was awful. Call me back. Chloe." I showed Brenda the messages. What do I do? What do you want to do? I thought for a moment. I want to answer them, but I don't want to go back on my decision. Then tell them that. I sat on the apartment balcony, looking out at the city lights and the dark ocean beyond. Took a deep breath and called Chris. He picked up on the first ring. Mom! Thank goodness. We were worried sick. Are you okay? I'm fine, honey. I'm at Brenda's place. We had dinner by the beach. It was a good birthday. Mom! His voice cracked. The kids are devastated. They haven't stopped crying since I told them you were leaving. They want to talk to you. My heart squeezed. The image of my grandkids crying almost made me cave. Chris, Please, Mom. Just listen to what they have to say. Before I could answer, I heard Chloe's voice, thick with tears. Grandma? Are you there? I'm here, sweetie. Grandma, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean any of it. It was awful and cruel, and I regretted it the second I hung up. I was going to call you back, but I was too embarrassed. And then I thought you wouldn't want to talk to me. And... Breathe, Chloe. I gently interrupted. I heard her take a shaky breath, trying to control her sobs. Grandma, please don't leave because of us. We promise we'll change. We'll visit you every weekend. We'll watch those old movies you like. We'll do everything just like before. I closed my eyes, warm tears tracing paths down my face. Chloe, I'm not leaving because of you. I'm leaving because at 68, I realized I also have a right to choices, to dreams, to a life that's mine. But what about us? Don't you love us anymore? The question hit me like a punch to the gut. How could she even think that? I love you more than anything in this world. That will never change. But love doesn't mean completely erasing yourself. It doesn't mean accepting being treated like you're disposable. There was a silence on the other end, broken only by muffled sobs. Grandma, it was Noah's voice now. Can we come visit you? At the new house? Of course you can. I'd love to have you. And you'll come back to visit us too. I will, Noah. I'm not disappearing from your lives. I'm just creating a life of my own. We talked for a few more minutes. They told me about school, about their friends, about everyday things they hadn't shared with me in months. It was like the wall that had gone up between us was slowly, finally, starting to crumble. When we finally said goodbye, I promised to call the next day. I hung up the phone feeling emotionally drained, but strangely light. Brenda, who'd given me privacy during the call, came back onto the balcony with 2 cups of tea. How was it? Hard, but necessary. She nodded, handing me one of the cups. You know what I think, Susan? I think this change isn't just good for you. It's good for them too. How so? They needed to learn that you're a person, not just a grandma. That you have feelings, desires, boundaries. That you deserve respect. That lesson will make them better people in the long run. I stayed silent, reflecting on her words as I watched the city lights reflect on the dark ocean. And as for you, Brenda continued, you needed to learn that your worth isn't just in what you do for others. That you deserve happiness for yourself, not just as a reflection of their happiness. I took a sip of the tea, feeling its warmth spread through my body. I'm scared, Brenda. What if I can't do it? What if I find out I don't know who I am outside of being a mom and a grandma anymore? Then you find out, day by day. It's an adventure, Susan. The adventure of rediscovering yourself. The next morning, I woke to the sound of waves drifting in through the window. For a moment, I was disoriented, not recognizing where I was. Then it all came back. The decision, the trip, the conversation with the twins. I got up and went to the window. The ocean was calm, a deep blue stretching to the horizon. On the beach, a few people were already walking, enjoying the start of the day. I grabbed the sketchbook and watercolors Brenda had given me. I sat on the balcony and started to paint that view. My first strokes were hesitant, unsure. But little by little, as if waking from a long sleep, the skill came back. The colors blended on the paper, capturing the golden morning light, the blue of the sea, the gentle movement of the waves. Brenda found me like that, absorbed in my painting when she came out of her room. "I see you haven't lost your touch," she commented, looking over my shoulder. "It's like riding a bike, I guess. The body remembers, even when the mind forgets." She smiled, squeezing my shoulder gently. "Let's grab some coffee and then go look at those houses. I have a good feeling about today." The third house we visited was the one that won me over. Small, with 2 bedrooms, an airy living room, and a compact but functional kitchen. What truly charmed me, though, was the backyard. It wasn't huge, but it had an old oak tree, a perfect little spot for a herb garden, and enough room for a table where I could paint outdoors. "This is it," I told Brenda, who just smiled like she already knew. We made an offer that same day. With the money from selling the old lot, I could pay cash, which made the negotiation easy. In a week, the house would be mine. That night, I called Chris to tell him the news. "I bought a house, honey. Small but cozy. It has an extra bedroom for when you all want to visit." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. "So it's final? You're really staying out there?" "Yes, Chris. It's what I want to do." He sighed deeply. "Mom, I'm still trying to wrap my head around all this. It was so sudden. For you, maybe. For me, it's been a long process. Years of thinking about others before myself. Years of putting off dreams, desires. I don't regret it. Raising you was the best thing I ever did. But now it's time to live a little for me." "I understand," he said. And for the first time, I felt like maybe he really did. "We're just going to miss you." "I'll miss you too, but I'm not disappearing, honey. I'm just expanding my world." After hanging up, I thought about how quickly things change. A week ago, I was in my apartment crying because I felt discarded by my family. Now I was about to start a new life, in a new town, with new dreams. The following weeks were a whirlwind. Moving into the new house, buying furniture, not much. I decided to only bring the essentials from my old apartment. Signing up for the painting class I found in town. Brenda introduced me to her friends, a group of people in their 60s and 70s. Active, interesting, full of stories to tell. A month after I arrived, I got my first visit. Chris, Stephanie, and the twins came to spend the weekend. I was nervous. How would it be to host them? Not as the grandma who always gave in, always available, but as a woman with her own life. When they arrived, Chloe was the first out of the car, running to hug me with an intensity that surprised me. "Grandma, we missed you so much." Noah followed right behind, more reserved as always, but with a genuine smile I hadn't seen directed at me in months. "Your house is cool," he commented, looking around. "Is there a beach nearby?" 3 blocks from here," I replied, hugging him. "We can go later if you want." Chris and Stephanie approached. My son gave me a long hug, as if he wanted to make up for something. Stephanie, to my surprise, also gave me a warm embrace. "Susan, you look different," she commented, observing me. I knew what she meant. My hair, once always pulled back in a conservative bun, was now cut in a more modern style, a suggestion from the stylist Brenda introduced me to. My clothes were different too, more colorful, lighter, more suited to life by the sea. "Different how?" I asked, genuinely curious. "More youthful, lighter, happy." I smiled, touched by the comment. "I think I am, Stephanie. I think I am." I showed them the house, the backyard with the old oak tree, the small studio I'd set up in the extra bedroom. I showed them my recent paintings, mostly seascapes, but also a few portraits I'd started of my new friends. "Grandma, I didn't know you painted so well," Noah commented, admiring a painting of the sunset on the beach. "There were a lot of things I put aside when you were little," I replied without resentment. "Now I'm rediscovering them." That night, we all sat on the back porch, under the old oak tree lit by string lights Brenda had helped me install. We ate grilled fish I'd prepared with herbs from my little garden, drank wine, juice for the twins, and talked like we hadn't in a long, long time. At one point, Chloe, who'd been quiet for a while, asked, "Grandma, are you still mad at us for what we said on the phone that day?" I looked at my granddaughter, now almost 16, on the cusp of childhood and adulthood. I saw vulnerability in her eyes, a genuine plea for forgiveness. "I'm not mad, Chloe. I was hurt, yes, deeply. But I understand you're growing up, figuring out who you are. Sometimes, in that process, we hurt people we love without realizing it." "But what I said was awful," she insisted, her eyes welling up. "You didn't deserve to hear that. Not after everything you've always done for us." I reached out, gently touching her face. "The important thing is that we learn from our mistakes. I learned from mine too." "What mistakes did you make, Grandma?" Noah asked, curious. I thought for a moment before answering. Perhaps the biggest one was forgetting about myself. I poured so much of myself into others that I lost sight of who I was, beyond being a mom and a grandma. That wasn't healthy. Not for me, and not for you all either. Chris, who'd been listening in silence, finally spoke up. "Mom, I don't think I ever properly thanked you for everything you did for us after Dad passed, for how much you gave up to raise us. You didn't have to thank me, son. I did it out of love. But I should have thanked you anyway," he insisted. "And I should have realized sooner how much more you deserved from life than just being our constant support." Stephanie nodded, taking my hand. "Susan, when you decided to move so suddenly, I was shocked. Maybe even a little resentful. But now seeing you here so at peace, I get it, and I'm happy for you." Those words, so unexpected from Stephanie, touched me deeply. "Thank you," was all I could manage. Later, after everyone had settled in, the twins in the guest room, Chris and Stephanie on an air mattress in the living room, I found myself alone on the porch, gazing at the stars. I thought of Arthur, how proud he would have been to see me finally living fully. I thought of my parents, how they raised me to be strong and independent, qualities I'd somehow forgotten over years of self-sacrifice. I also thought about the future, the many sunsets I'd still see from this porch, the paintings I'd still create, the friendships I was building, the renewed relationship with my family, no longer based on dependence and obligation, but on mutual respect and true love. The next day before they left, Noah handed me a small package. We made this for you, Grandma. Me and Chloe. Inside was a picture frame. Not a childish clay one anymore, but store-bought. In it, a recent photo of the four of us. Me, Chris, Noah, and Chloe. Taken at the beach the day before. "So you never forget how much we love you," he said, repeating the same words he'd used so many years ago. I hugged my grandchildren, feeling a wave of love so intense it almost hurt. "I'll never forget," I promised. "And you two shouldn't forget either. True love doesn't hold you back. It sets you free. It doesn't diminish, it expands." As their car disappeared around the corner, I didn't feel the emptiness I'd feared. Instead, I felt filled with a quiet certainty that I'd made the right choice. That it was possible to love my family deeply, and at the same time, love myself enough to seek my own happiness. I went back inside, grabbed my sketchbook and watercolors, and sat down under the old oak tree. I started painting my grandchildren's faces from memory, capturing not just their features, but the renewed light in their eyes when we said goodbye. At 68, I discovered that life can be a constant new beginning, that it's never too late to rediscover who we are, to rewrite our story. That love, when it's true, survives changes, distances, misunderstandings, and that sometimes we need to step away to find ourselves again, not just with others, but especially with ourselves. Looking at the canvas taking shape under my brushes, I smiled. The future stretched out before me like the ocean that was now part of my daily life. Vast, mysterious, full of possibilities. And for the first time in many years, I wasn't afraid to navigate unknown waters, because I finally understood. I wasn't just Chris's mom, Stephanie's mother-in-law, Noah and Chloe's grandma. I was Susan. And Susan, I discovered, still had so much to live, to feel, to create. And that, more than anything else, was a gift I'd be eternally grateful for.